Well, it wasn't always pretty, but the Dallas Cowboys get the job done, matching their win total from a year ago, their 12th win of the 2022 campaign. This time, it comes at Nissan Stadium in Nashville, Tennessee, as they take down the Titans 27-13 in the penultimate game of the NFL regular season. Welcome into the First Word presented by Dr. Pepper. Alongside Nate Newton and Haley Sutton, I'm Kyle Yeomans as we break down what just happened in Nashville. And I mean, I mentioned it right off the top. It wasn't pretty all the ways for the Dallas Cowboys. Couple injuries kind of scattered throughout, early turnovers, but Haley, they were able to get the job done. Yeah, the biggest thing I think in this one was to do just that, get the job done, no matter how messy or pretty it was. I think most of us expected this one to be a blowout of sorts. You're playing against guys who really haven't seen any action, but nonetheless, the Cowboys find another way to get it done. You mentioned it though, Kyle, the biggest concern in this that I even said in our pregame show was get away without some injuries in this one. And you had some key injuries, losing Tyler Biadasz, Zach Martin with an ankle injury. The secondary was banged up a little bit there. So definitely some concerns and things to ask Mike McCarthy in the postgame press conference.
You know, as ugly as this game was, it was 8 for 13 on third downs. We controlled time of possession. 87 yards rushing wasn't pretty, but we had over 270 yards of passing. Our quarterback had a few boo-boos, some his and some wasn't his. But, you know, you got out of there, and I'm with you, Miss Haley. We needed to get out of there without any injuries, and we didn't.
And you had to shuffle around the offensive line. Of course, the most notable injury, I think at this point, is Tyler Biadasz. And he left in the middle of the third quarter, did not return, went to the locker room on a cart. Nate, they had to shuffle the offensive line around because of that. Connor McGovern moves from left guard to center.
Right.
Then you've got Tyler Smith shifting down one position to go to left guard as well. And then it's Jason Peters. How do you feel like they fared in the second half? Because things were cleaner in the second half, but they did it with different personnel.
They did, and that comes from the coaches playing different guys. But you had one injury, and we had 3 moves, and that is great. And trying to hold that continuity, that blew up altogether. But they played well in the second half. They wasn't going to be able to run the ball. They only give up 80 yards rushing. They got 7 more than the average. So they did well. They kept Dak standing up for the most part. They got through it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's notable when you have one guy making 3 players shift around, and kudos to them for getting it done. I mean, that was a split-second decision where the coaching staff had to go, okay, let's do this, let's figure it out. So obviously this week at practice, they've got a little bit more time to rest and to figure that out. That will obviously be something very similar like when Tyron Smith slid into that right tackle spot. It'll be something that they'll have to work on at practice. I think for what it's worth, they did the best they could, and that's all you could really ask for in a game like this when it was coming down to the wire. As I mentioned, those injuries were racking up, so definitely something to consider going forward.
Now let's stay with the offense, talking about Dak Prescott early in the game, 2 interceptions, one of which was not really his fault. He put it on the money, the Peyton Hendershot. Hendershot could not hold on, clanked off, interception, Tennessee. Not so much so in the second quarter. I mean, right at the tail end of that first half, throws it into a tight window. It's intercepted. It turns into 3 points the other way. Settled down in the second half, which is something that we've become accustomed to. But these turnovers, Nate, they have to stop, especially in crucial points in the ball game.
The bigger the game. And I'm not downplaying Tennessee. Tennessee downplayed their own selves by not having 8 starters play. So I'm not downplaying them. But we cannot have that happen. Dak, he's getting to the point where people are starting to say, hey, just be patient, he'll throw you one. You don't want to be that type of quarterback going into the playoffs. You want to be clean because the incidents do happen, but you don't want to be because of you.
Yeah.
I just think at some point we have to figure it out. I mean, every week it's happening, and now that's what defenses are expecting. When Dak Prescott steps on the field, you're expecting an interception now. It's not something where you're saying, oh, this might happen. Every week you're expecting Dak Prescott to throw an interception, and I know Dak speaks very highly of himself. He talks about being confident. He talks about playing aggressive and not wanting to change that. But at some point, you really have to figure out how to evaluate how to keep that from happening. Because the first one, you're right. Peyton should have had that one. It was right in the breadbasket, bounced around. Rookie mistakes happen, right? But that second interception we're seeing more and more often with Dak, and you've got to find a way. For me, the excuses at this point, you know, it doesn't matter. It's something that we have to eliminate, because going forward when you're going into the postseason, that's the kind of stuff the defenses are really going to pick up on. And could be your downfall down the stretch.
It certainly played out. And luckily, one of the problems like that earlier in the season were penalties. It's good to feel like you're on the opposite side of that for once for Dallas Cowboys Nation, because Tennessee ended the game with 10 penalties for 124 yards. But really quickly here, let's talk about the defense. Haley, felt like the pass rush was back to normal. Secondary did a nice job of limiting Joshua Dobbs. Now, it's not Tom Brady throwing the football around. It's not Aaron Rodgers. It was Joshua Dobbs. But how you feel like the defense fared, got after him in the secondary play?
It was nice to see. You know, I'm taking it with a grain of salt because it was against Tennessee's third stringers, so I'm taking it with a grain of salt. But I will say it's enlightening. It's encouraging to see the pass rush wake up. It's encouraging to see Micah Parsons get out there and make plays even when he's banged up. To me, I was most impressed with DeMarcus Lawrence. I think in that first half, he had a tremendous game. His hands were in the face. He was disrupting the quarterback. He was really making some quietly impactful plays, and that's something that we've seen from him in this season, where he's been maybe not lighting up the stat sheet like we're used to seeing from Tank, but those small, impactful plays are really making a difference. So I was impressed with him.
And what I liked about it, they didn't do a lot of games, a lot of TEs, tackling in, coming around. They got off the ball individually. And when you see guys starting to defeat their individual opponents, regardless of what string they are, that's a good thing. That puts your quarterback under pressure quicker because you don't have to wait to set up anything. You just get your move. And I liked Micah Parsons tonight staying in his lanes. He stayed in his lanes and he forced things back to the inside, whereas last week he was forcing everything to the outside and giving the quarterback extra time to read. This time he kept everything bottled up and they was more successful.
2 sacks tonight for the Cowboys, one of which a strip sack. And it doesn't sound like a lot for this pass rush, but that's twice as many as they've had in the last 3 weeks combined. Here's a look at the final stats. Once again, Nate mentioned it earlier. Great on third down again offensively. 8 of 13. If you can convert at that rate on third down, you're going to have a lot of success in this league. They finished up with 361 yards of total offense. The ground game never really got started, though they did stick with it. 10 carries for Malik Davis, 19 for Ezekiel Elliott. That'll be a talking point moving forward, especially with the shuffling on the offensive line. But that does it for us here on The First Word, presented by Dr. Pepper. The Cowboys win it 27-13 over Tennessee. Stay up to date for all more post-game reaction coming your way on DallasCowboys.com.